Scaphism. In ancient Persia, there was an execution method so horrific that its very description served as a deterrent. It was called scaphism, or the boats. The condemned was trapped between two small boats with only their head, hands, and feet exposed. They were force-fed milk and honey until they developed severe diarrhea. Honey was then smeared across their exposed skin. The victim was left in a stagnant pond under the sun. Insects, flies, and wasps were attracted to the mixture of sweetness and decay. Over days, the insects would infest the body, leading to infection and eventual death from septic shock. The soldier Mithrates reportedly endured this for 17 days. Historical accounts describe his body being found in a state of advanced decomposition, overtaken by the insects that had fed on him throughout his ordeal. The brazen bull. In ancient Sicily, the tyrant Pharis commissioned an inventor named Perillus to create the ultimate execution device. The result was the brazen bull, a hollow bronze sculpture with a door on its side. The condemned was locked inside, and a fire was lit beneath it. As the bronze heated, the victim was slowly roasted alive. The bull had internal pipes that transformed screams into sounds resembling a bull's bellowing. Steam from the heated metal escaped through the nostrils, making it appear like the bull came to life. When Perillus demonstrated his invention, Pharis had the inventor locked inside to test it. Perillus was pulled out before death, then thrown off a cliff. Years later, when Pharis was overthrown, he was executed in his own creation, the Blood Eagle. According to Norse sagas, the Blood Eagle was a ritual execution reserved for enemies who had murdered family members. The ritual is described in medieval texts. The victim was placed face down, and their ribs were severed from the spine. The ribs and skin were pulled outward to resemble wings. The lungs were then removed and placed on the victim's back. Viking Earl Torfeinar allegedly performed this on Halfdan Longleg, dedicating the body to Odin. Centuries later, Ivar the Boneless reportedly did the same to King Ella, avenging his father's death. Modern scholars suggest it may have been misunderstood poetry. A 2022 study found that if performed, the victim would have died within seconds from blood loss, not prolonged torture as popularly believed. While the Vikings may have debated the morality of such rituals, medieval China had no such doubts about prolonged suffering. Lingchai. For nearly 1,000 years, China used one of history's most prolonged execution methods, lingchai, or slow slicing. The condemned was tied to a wooden frame in public. Using a sharp blade, the executioner made systematic cuts, starting with limbs and extremities, carefully avoiding vital organs to prolong death. The process could last hours or even days. Records show executions ranging from 100 cuts in the Yuan dynasty to over 3,000 in the Ming dynasty. Families could bribe the executioner to cut the throat first, making death swift and subsequent cuts symbolic. Linggi was reserved for treason, patricide, and mass murder. The last case occurred in April 1905, weeks before China abolished it under Western pressure. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. For over 600 years, England reserved its most brutal punishment for high treason. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. The condemned was tied to a wooden panel and dragged by horse to the execution site. At the gallows, they were hanged, but cut down before death, still conscious. What followed was systematic brutality. The victim was disemboweled while alive, their organs removed and burned before them. Finally, they were beheaded and their body cut into 4 pieces. The severed head was displayed on London Bridge. Body parts were sent to different cities, a warning that challenging the monarch meant not just death, but public desecration. William Wallace suffered this in 1305. Guy Fawkes was sentenced to it in 6006, but broke his neck jumping from the gallows, avoiding the worst. The practice was abolished in 1870. The breaking wheel. Across medieval Europe, breaking on Thewhill was reserved for murderers, highway robbers, and traitors. The condemned was tied to a scaffold with limbs stretched outward. Using a heavy iron bar, the executioner systematically broke every major bone, starting with the legs, then the arms. Sharp wooden blocks were placed beneath joints to ensure complete fractures. If the court showed mercy, a final blow to the chest caused quick death. Without mercy, the victim remained alive. The shattered body was then woven through the spokes of a large wheel and raised on a pole. There, exposed to elements and scavenging birds, the condemned died slowly from shock and dehydration, sometimes surviving for days. The last execution by wheel occurred in Prussia in 1841, but systematic torture wasn't limited to breaking bones. Some methods involved dividing the body entirely. The sawing. One of history's most methodical execution methods was death by sawing, used across ancient Persia, Rome, Morocco, and parts of Europe and Asia. The condemned was fastened between two wooden boards and hung upside down. This positioning maintained blood flow to the brain, keeping the victim conscious far longer than otherwise possible. Using a large two-man saw, executioners cut lengthwise through the body, starting from the lower abdomen upward. The process was deliberate and slow. In a 1705 case from Morocco, the victim remained conscious after being sawed to the navel and asked for water before executioners continued. Christian martyrs including Simon the Zealot were executed this way in ancient Persia. The method appeared across cultures through centuries. Flaying, the removal of skin from a living person, was used as torture and execution across ancient Assyria, medieval Europe, and China. Sharp blades systematically cut and peeled away skin, often starting from extremities. Death didn't come quickly. Victims died from shock, blood loss, hypothermia, or infection, taking hours or even days. Neo-Assyrian kings were notorious for this practice. Rebel leaders were flayed alive, their skins displayed on city walls as warnings. The most documented medieval case occurred in 1571. Venetian commander Marco Antonio Bragadin was flayed head-to-toe by Ottoman forces after surrendering Cyprus. His skin was stuffed with straw as a trophy. When his tomb was opened in 1961, the preserved skin was found inside, confirming the historical account. The rat torture. Rat torture was designed to maximize both physical agony and psychological terror. The most documented method emerged during the Dutch Revolt in the 1500s. The victim was restrained on their back. A metal cage or pottery bowl filled with starving rats was placed open side down on their bare abdomen. Hot coals were then piled on top of the container. As the metal heated, the trapped rats became frantic, with no escape except downward. They desperately clawed and burrowed through the victim's flesh to escape the heat. The process took hours, with victims enduring both physical trauma and the psychological horror of rats gnawing deeper into their body. Dedrick Sonne, an ally of William the Silent, is documented using this method during the Dutch Revolt. The technique broke prisoners' will through sheer terror, often before the rats even began their work. The elephant execution. For centuries across South and Southeast Asia, trained elephants served as executioners for royalty, crushing, dismembering, or torturing victims in public displays of power. Handlers called mahouts trained elephants to kill in multiple ways, crushing a victim's head instantly with one step, systematically breaking limbs one by one, or using trunks to tear the body apart. Some elephants had sharp blades fitted to their tusks to slice victims to pieces. The horror lay in the control. Rulers could order the elephant to stop at any moment, showing mercy or command prolonged torture. This demonstrated absolute authority over both subjects and wild beasts. In 1814 at Baroda, a documented execution involved dragging a victim 500 wide behind an elephant, dislocating every limb before the elephant crushed his head. The practice ended in the mid-1800s when British colonial powers suppressed it. Electric chair botched executions. The electric chair was invented in 1890 as a supposedly humane alternative to hanging. It sends high-voltage current through the body to cause instant death. Equipment failures and human error have repeatedly made executions horrifying. In 1983, John Evans endured 14 minutes and 3 jolts of electricity. The electrode on his leg burst into flames and smoke poured from his head. After the first jolt, doctors found a heartbeat. The second produced more smoke, but still alive. The third finally killed him, leaving his body charred. In 1990, Jesse Tiro's execution produced 6 in flames from his head, requiring 3 jolts caused by using the wrong type of sponge. In 1997, Pedro Medina suffered similarly when foot-high flames erupted, filling the chamber with smoke. Despite these failures, the electric chair remains legal in several U.S. states. The lethal injection. Lethal injection was introduced in 1982 as a supposedly humane alternative, using drugs to render the person unconscious, paralyze them, and stop the heart. Instead, It has the highest failure rate of any modern execution method, 7.2%. The most notorious case occurred in Oklahoma on April 29, 2014. Clayton Lockett was declared unconscious 10 minutes after receiving the first drug. 3 minutes later, he began struggling violently, raised his head, and said, "Something's wrong." Officials closed the blinds. 20 minutes later, they halted the execution when the intravenous line failed. Drugs went into muscle tissue, not his vein. Lockett died 43 minutes later from a heart attack. Witnesses called it torture. Despite repeated failures, lethal injection remains America's primary execution method, the anti-aircraft gun. Under Kim Jong-un's regime, North Korea employs one of the most extreme modern execution methods, death by anti-aircraft gun. Anti-aircraft weapons are designed to destroy military aircraft. Large-caliber machine guns firing hundreds of rounds per minute. North Korea uses these at point-blank range on humans. The condemned is tied to a post. Anti-aircraft guns are positioned 30 m away. When fired, the body is instantly obliterated. This targets officials accused of disloyalty. In 2015, Defense Minister Haeun Yong-kal was executed while his family watched. In 2016, Ra Yong-jin was reportedly executed for falling asleep during Kim's meeting. These executions serve as state terror to prevent defections, and the practice still continues today. From ancient Persia to modern America, humanity has spent thousands of years inventing ways to end life, all revealing something dark about the societies that use them. The methods have changed. The cruelty hasn't. Today, capital punishment continues in over 50 countries worldwide. Some claim modern methods are humane, even if the evidence suggests otherwise. If you made it this far, thank you. Make sure to subscribe for more stories like this.